October Hesidu de Fude Koyabechaya, the Shaftu Bet Adonoi, Orech Yamin. A song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Family members will now share their memories of Joe.
B'Tselem Elohim, we are created in the image of God. We are obligated to live a life and do our best to uphold this significant, critical, and powerful value. Nothing can be more true than to say that Joe Klein lived a life understanding the importance of this value. There are two men in my life that have influenced the person I am today. They are my heroes. One is my father, and the other is my dear father-in-law, Joe Klein. I was the lucky one for having the opportunity to marry his wonderful daughter and get the opportunity to learn from him. He was a character, to say the least. From the first time I met him, he always was offering me something to eat. At that time, you have to realize I was a 25-year-old from Montgomery, Alabama, and didn't understand the sheer delight of pickled herring and old Vienna gefilte fish in the can, no less. He was a simple man with one major goal in life: make the others around him happy. He was, as they say, a true people pleaser. It wasn't necessary, but this was Joe. I assure you, Joe, we are the ones who should be thanking you. You gave us so much to learn and live by. For me, Joe made certain I understood as much as possible about our Jewish traditions. When Mona brought me home for Shabbos dinner for the first time, I'm not certain that he knew I was Jewish. Mona and I dated for months, and finally the big day came when I was going to ask Joe for his blessing to marry her. I was nervous, to say the least. I walked into the house, like I had so many times before, and went in to see Joe. He was reading the Cleveland Jewish News and watching television in the den. He thought this was just a casual conversation. I sat down and said, I need to ask you something serious. And as he likely said many times before, what is it, Artie? I said, I want to ask you for your blessing to marry your daughter, Mona. What? Somehow he got fixated. This is because Joe liked to stand on ceremony sometimes, on the fact that he was only wearing socks. I wanted the answer. That's all I wanted. He said, I can't believe I am being asked this question, and I'm only wearing socks. I'm only wearing socks, he repeated. Ultimately, he gave me his blessing, and since it was so close to Rosh Hashanah, Joe wanted to make some calls. And although Joe had a great command of the English language, sometimes he mixed things up. He told me before calling the family to tell them that we would have a simcha soon, that he was going to kill 2 stones with 1 bird, as he wished them all Shana Tova. So that was Joe. And then we were off to the races. Joe was going to teach me whatever he could. He was bound and determined to teach me the right ways. Think about it. When most of us were children and we were in synagogue, our parents would constantly show us where we were in the prayer book. He did that to me for many years. I knew where we were in the book, but it was Joe's joy to show me. He would get an aliyah and bring me to the bima. It was like I was the boy he never had. A little uncomfortable at times, but it was truly my honor. Ask yourself, who wouldn't want to be the child of Joe Klein, the kindest, most giving, loving individual I know? There's so many stories and so many memories. I know I will cherish them forever, from him leading Seders, to bringing us kibasi from Cleveland, to the sheer joy he got after speaking to a group of students about the horrors of the Holocaust. And joy it was, because he loved the children and loved receiving the hundreds of notes thanking him for making an impact on their lives. The world is better due to the many mitzvot done by Joe Klein. I am sure he has a first row seat and is the right-hand man to Hashem. There is no better. May his memory be for blessed.
Hi, I wanted to say a few brief words about this wonderful man, Joe Klein. It was my honor to be his son-in-law. Through more than 37 years that Joe welcomed me and my family into the Klein family, Joe, through his actions, and not just words, lived life every day to its fullest. He had a very difficult start to his life, living through the horrors of the Holocaust, losing his parents and family in several concentration camps, and coming to his new adopted country and thrust into service in the Korean War. Through all this, Joe never complained. He saw the positives in situations others could not. He treated everyone he came in contact with respect and kindness. He was extremely loyal and dedicated to his wonderful shul, Warrensville Synagogue, now Cedar Sinai. He was equally dedicated in his career, working for more than 30 years in owner's management, where he became family to the Rezepkas and all his co-workers. Joe dedicated his life to spreading goodwill and a positive attitude with everyone he came in contact with. He did everything in his power to ensure the world would remember the 6 million. God bless Joe Klein.
The world will be forever better because of Joseph Klein. A man who lived life with purpose, intention, and love. That is who Joseph Klein was. As many of you know, my Zaidi, as we affectionately called him, survived the horrors of the Holocaust. And while his life would never be the same because of this, he did not allow his experience in the Shoah to define him, but rather, he defined his experience. If you were privileged enough to ever hear my Zaidi recount his story of survival, you know his story was not overtly negative, but rather redemptive and inspiring. My Zaidi spoke about luck, especially the luck that God afforded him to make decisions while in the camps that would end up saving his life. A typical person who endures so much pain and loss in such a short period of time often does not have the presence of mind to reframe their experience into a positive one. My Zaidi was no typical person. My Zaidi viewed himself to be lucky, and when you look at the whole picture of his life, you can see exactly why. My Zaidi had a beautiful life, an amazing family, a vibrant Jewish community, and so many friends. Joseph Klein could truly convince you that he was one of the luckiest people to walk this planet. And by doing so, he'd also show you just how lucky you were to know him. I want to share a brief story about my Zaidi to show you guys just how much he cared for others. A few years ago, I was visiting my grandparents while they were still living in their home on Stonehaven. Long story short, my bubby was backing the car out of the driveway and accidentally ran over my foot. I was absolutely fine, but Zaidi had to make certain that I was. So after the trip, for about 2 weeks straight, when we'd talk, he'd always ask about my foot. How it was feeling, how sorry he felt about it. This was the type of person my Zaidi was. Even if I told him I was fine on Monday, it didn't mean he wasn't going to check up on me on Wednesday and the following Monday. The way my Zaidi cared about people is truly remarkable and inspiring, and I'm so proud and lucky to have been his grandson. A man who loved his Cleveland Indians, his garden, his cold cut sandwiches, and above everything else, his family and his faith. The world will be forever better because of Joseph Klein, and we will all be forever better for knowing Joseph Klein.
Joe's friend of more than 70 years, Albert Hirsch, asked me to read some words. He wrote, "It is with a broken heart that I would like to share some thoughts and feelings about my special friend, Joe Klein. We have been friends since 1949. We met after he came to this country from England after being liberated from the Holocaust. We lived on the same street in Cleveland. We shared many meals together at Rose's house, or Hanuku's house, and had lots of fun traveling, learning about America together, and just hanging out. In 1951, we were both drafted into the Korean War. He was very proud of his military service and was a lifelong member in the Jewish War Veterans Post 14. While we were in Korea, and upon our discharge, we were inseparable. He was the best man at my wedding to Pearl in 1957. Joe was a very likable guy, very compassionate and welcoming to everyone. He had a way of making his friends feel special. He did everything he put his mind to with 110% effort. In the Army, his shoes were always perfectly polished. His uniform was always neat and pressed. Joe felt very strongly about teaching the younger generation about how he had suffered through the Nazi regime, and is one of the first people I know to share his experience so openly and genuinely. He inspired many others to share their story as well. Joe was very proud of his family, his wife Bella, daughters Audrey and Mona, their spouses, and his grandchildren. His love for them was so apparent. My life was fuller for having Joe Klein as my friend, and I will forever miss him and will keep my love for him in my heart forever. We are now reading the Parshiot that describe how the Jewish people rebuilt themselves after their years of slavery in Egypt. Through a deep sense of commitment to God and community, dedication to family, and a willingness to take on the unexpected, the Jewish people were able to overcome the experience of slavery and all of the challenges that they faced in the Midbar and the wilderness. Joe Klein, Yosef ben Moshe, faced numerous horrors and challenges in his life, and these same principles always guided him. Joe was born in 1929 near Munkach in the Carpathian Mountains, one of 6 siblings and the youngest boy. His childhood was brutally interrupted by the Holocaust. He survived Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and the Nazi death marches. Joe dedicated a great deal of time to ensuring the memory and lessons of these horrors was never forgotten. He spoke frequently about his experiences in local schools, and perhaps among his most unique and incredible traits was that Audrey and Mona, he told me that despite all that he endured, he always believed people were fundamentally good. After the war, Joe reunited with his surviving siblings and made his way west. First to England, where he met Mike Lane, and then to Cleveland, where he met Albert Hirsch. Joe, Mike, and Albert would remain lifelong friends. A year after arriving in this country, Joe was drafted to fight in the Korean War, even before he had received his citizenship. He fought in the war alongside his fellow Holocaust survivors and friends, Mike and Albert. After the war, Joe traveled to Israel to visit family, and there he was set up on a blind date with the love of his life, Bella. Together, they returned to Cleveland and began to build a family and had 2 daughters, Audrey and Mona. Audrey and Mona, you both described how committed your father was to your family. He was, you said, a loving, doting, and patient father. Audrey, you remembered how when he worked at the Cleveland Press, he would wake you up when he got home late at night, just so he could spend some time with you. He loved sharing his interests with you, from baseball, he was an avid Indians fan, to animals, and even to disco. Joe was never afraid to learn something new or take up a new challenge. He even tried his hand at CB radio, using the handle Jolly Joe. Joe was also deeply committed to the Jewish community, and especially his shul. He, along with his brother, served as president of Warrensville Center Synagogue, the only 2 brothers to both serve in this role. And he established a fund for Holocaust education at Ohab Tzedek Cedar Sinai Synagogue. He loved attending services and sitting next to Mike Klein, and for many years served as the candy man at the shul. He relished receiving the Kol Hanarim Aliyah and Simchat Torah, surrounded by all of the children in the shul. Joe was never afraid of a challenge or new experience. He lived a life of commitment to family, Judaism, and the broader community. May his memory be an inspiration for us all and a blessing for his family. The Chazan at Ohab Tzedek Cedar Sinai, David Seltzer, will now recite Kalmale, the memorial prayer. Please rise.
I just want to say briefly that Joe, you are a torchbearer for a generation. I pray we'll be able to continue to carry that torch to the next generation. As a mentor and a friend, I love you and I miss you. El Malei Rachamim, Shofen Ban Ramim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanpei HaShechina, B'malos Kedoshim U'Torim, Kezor HaRakia Mazhirim, Es Nishmas Yosef ben Moshe, Shelach Liolamo, Bavor Shanachnu Mispalelim, Garas Maras Nishmaso, Began Eden Tei Menuchaso, Lochem Bahor HaChamim, Yastireu B'Seisor Kenafav Li'olamim, Bitzor HaChaim Es Nishmaso, Adonai hu nachlaso, v'yonuach b'shalom ha'mishkavo, v'nomar amen.
We'll now proceed to the interment, where we'll have an opportunity to say our final goodbye to Joe. I will put some symbolic dirt over the casket, then it will be vaulted, and then everyone will have the opportunity, beginning with the family, to participate in this important mitzvah. This, of course, is a mitzvah that we call a chesed shel emet, a true act of kindness, because it is something that someone can never repay to the person who performs it for them. everyone can now, who wants to take part, can now come forward to help say goodbye to Joe as we begin the interment process. As a reminder, we don't hand off the shovel to the person behind us because this isn't something that we want to do. It's something though that we have to do. And when you're done shoveling, just put the shovel back in the pile, and the next person will take it.
How you doing? Today, that's right. You usually golf with my neighbor, Bobby. What, you ever see Bobby? He's a sweetheart of a guy.
תעשה. כסוס הנעקד כשק שיבה ועשה. צדיק לכל דוריו רצור תחומים. ערך אפיים ולערך חמים. Chamol no chus no alasu banim. Kilcha adonis chos v'achamim. Sadiq ato Adonai la'misl ha'chayos. Shebiyatka pikdon kol luchos. Chalilacha zichroneinu limchos v'yu na einenu b'rachamim alenu fukachos. Kilcha Adon rachim lastichos. Adam im ben shana yihya, olavishan yihya, ma yisrael lo kulo hayah hayah. Baruch danamas memis mechayah. Baruch hu chemas dinom shotet hakol beino, mishalim l'adam cheshbano v'yido hakol ishmal hodayat litenu. Yodana Adonai kisedek mishpet betecha, tistak v'devarecha v'siskav shavtecha, vein lahar achar midas shavtecha, sadiq ato Adonai v'yashar mishpetecha. Yan emes shofet sedek v'emes baruch dan emes shekol mishpetov sedek v'emes. Nefesh kol chai b'yodecha sedek malo yimitcha v'yodecha rachima plidus son yodecha v'samar l'malach heraf yodecha. Gedol hoitzov rav havila aliyah asher einecha v'kuchos hakol derechei b'nei adam aseis lish kidrecha v'chivri ma'olav. Legi ki yasher Adonai tzri v'lo sabo Adonai nasan v'Adonai lakach yishem Adonai mevarach. Urachim v'chaper avon le'yashkis v'yabal l'shiapo lo'yir kol chamasa. Skadav skadash mei rabba. Yamada hu asi l'schatasa l'achya l'meisaya l'sachkol l'faye alma l'vnei kartadu shalem l'shachlil hechalei b'gava l'mekar puchanad l'kur'a mi'ar'a l'savav puchanad ishmaya l'asra v'yamlich b'utshe b'richu b'makusei v'korei V'chayechona v'imechona v'chayda v'beis Yisrael. Thy beloved is Maklari v'imru Amen. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbo v'Rab v'Ram v'Meo Mayah. Yisbarach v'Yishtabach v'Yisbar v'Yisraman v'Yisnaseh. V'Yisadar v'Yisalah v'Yisalal Shemei Dekudusha b'Richu. Leila mikol v'Chasa v'Shirasa v'Shmachasa v'Nechemasa. Damriyom v'Yomah v'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabbi Mishamaya. V'Chaim Aleinu v'Akol Yisrael v'imru Amen. V'Seh Shalom Yomah. V'Yasser Shalom Aleinu. V'Akol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
We're going to ask friends and family, everyone except our immediate mourners, to create an aisle here. Some people to my left, some people to my right. The Shura, the traditional aisle of constellation. If you want to come over here, just face one another carefully and slowly.
As all three Amona come through, we offer the traditional words of comfort.
For another minute.